That Gen 4, the Gen 4 was to me the last real true race NASCAR Cup car. That I don't think 95% of the current NASCAR roster could make a full race at say Atlanta or Darlington or Dover in those cars. Those were race cars. You had to drive those cars.
Yeah, and you learned real quick if you did something that car didn't like, not only did it tell you, but a lot of times you wadded it up too.
I'll put it on
Where
the screen real quick. It's the Home Depot Tony Stewart, which everybody remembers that, right? Everybody remembers that.
well, now it's vintage. It's a
Yeah, no,
vintage car. The difference with those two is that you actually still had to manage your tires. You had to, it wasn't about whether you were a fast race car driver. You had to be a smart race car driver too. You had to know when to press, you had to know when to take care of tires. You had to be smart about how you raced. Um, now, and unfortunately this is technology. This isn't good. I used to give Goodyear a hard time, a super hard time if they screwed the tires up. But Goodyear got put in a really bad spot. I mean, the technology changed a bunch, and literally when I started driving in Cup Series, the heavier springs were in the front and the soft springs were in the back. Well, then it literally flopped 180 degrees. Somebody figured out that if we get soft springs in the front and put bump stops to get it to stop the travel of it, the soft springs, the air will hold the nose down, and they can do it with rebound in the shocks. And we put the bigger springs in the back and prop the back up. Well, now it gets the spoiler higher in the air, and it just makes this wedge like a sprint car wing. And that changed the whole game. But when they did that, Goodyear was in panic mode
hmm
because the loads on the tires were drastically different, especially with the bump stops. And we kind of got in that era where you saw a lot of right front tire failures. But it wasn't because Goodyear wasn't doing a good job. It's because the technology changed, the setups changed. Well, they can't predict that and get ahead of it. They have to react to it. So that was the issues that Goodyear had to deal with. And then we got into tires that were so hard. They were trying to build everything just so reliable that you could run a whole stint on tires, which might be 60, 70 laps, and it still had the mold mark in the center of it. But they had to. I mean, it's a marketing tool. If you're a consumer and you got a car and you need to go buy a set of tires for your car tomorrow and you just watched a NASCAR race and 10 guys blew right fronts and
right.
clobbered them on the fence, you're probably not going to stop at the Goodyear dealership tomorrow.
It's at
But
least going to make you mad at him.
well, it's going to make you question whether you want to do it. But that wasn't really Goodyear's fault. I mean, but there was a middle ground that was hard to find, and it took a long time to get back to that. But Goodyear did the work and got it there eventually.
Yeah, I mean it shows that Goodyear tried really hard. I guess they tried really hard with the dirt track side of stuff. It just didn't work out. Hoosier just has that on point, but yeah, that whole NASCAR era once, and obviously they got away from the Gen 4 because of Dale Senior and his
Mhm.
accident. The COT was to provide more room and more safety and everything like that for drivers. Well, and I mean, you don't always get injured. I mean, we got some older guys that are pretty good. Lance DeWeese still out there rolling around. Sammy is too. That's the deal with racing and age and things like that. Like even, young guns, you were a Gillette young gun at 27, 28 years old. I think that not to kind of circle around, that's probably when you are young in the racing world. If you were to naturally grow like through a local racing scene and you're able to get properly judged. But then age as well. I mean, when does it really fall off? I mean, it's not a quarterback where you got to get sacked by a 300 pounder. I mean, yeah, there's some physical exertion, but it's not the same as these other stick and ball sports. The skill probably doesn't drop off as hard. I was looking at last night. Sammy Swindell at 49 years old. Go look at his stats, man. He's 69 now, so we're talking about like 2005. Sammy Swindell was still a bad motherfucker. I mean, at 49 years old in a winged 410 sprint car, like
But he was. I mean, he's one of the Mount Rushmores, man. I mean,
he is. But
not everybody at 49 is going to do what he
I
did.
mean,
Not everybody's going to
Kinzer
be
was
like
up in age at that time. I mean, Jack
Stewie.
Hewitt did it into his ages. I mean, I just don't think racing, even though it seems like once a guy gets up to 40 in NASCAR, they say, "Oh, he's time to retire." I just don't buy that. I just think that's a smokescreen. We got to get one of these kids in here that's pumping millions in every year. We can't just lead them on in Xfinity for 10 years. You got to give
Yeah,
them a
I
seat.
think drivers in Cup can drive a lot longer than guys in sprint cars can and still be good. I
Right.
feel like.
Yeah.
I think it's way harder to be
That
good
Mike
in a sprint.
Wallace deal at Daytona was a disgrace for them to not let him race, I thought. But
Well, especially with the policy that now you're just going to let drivers that don't have any experience in a stock car. He said he didn't have enough experience. Well, I guess all the stuff he did before then didn't count, but that's NASCAR being NASCAR at its finest. That's NASCAR doing what they've done the entire history of NASCAR. That's them saying, they had a problem with they made Mike go to anger management or something when he got beat up bad in a parking lot after a concert. And but Mike and NASCAR had some kind of feud and some battle, and that's NASCAR's way of just flexing, like NASCAR does. If they don't like something, they'll just flex on you. And so, you know, they've got some feud, and they're going to come up with some bullshit excuse to not let him try to run and make the Daytona 500. But they make themselves look stupid every time they do something like that, because then you turn around and you let somebody that doesn't have any stock car experience run the race. Now they've had two of them do it this year from a different form of motorsports that don't have any cut background. So you say, well, he doesn't have enough track time, but yet you've let two people drive in the series that have zero experience in NASCAR and how NASCAR works. So it's like the logic that they have blows your mind sometimes.
Right, right. And then, of course, he drove the cars that were the Gen 4s as well, and very
Yeah.
fast race cars that are more difficult than the current vehicle, more than likely.
Yeah, exactly. That's
But age is crazy, I mean, when they get up to 40 and I hear, oh, he's getting ready to retire, it's funny to me in a way, especially in cup racing. I mean, sprint car racing, okay, but you got your few outliers. But I
I
think,
think
go ahead.
I think the reason that you hear him talk about that is, people and a lot of people listening tonight probably forget the time when there was no limit on how much you could test.
Mm,
And I remember one year we tested 40 days. So after 20 of the events, 20 of 38 events that we ran, we went somewhere else and tested for 2 days. So that was back in my Home Depot days with Zipadelli, and we would leave early to mid-afternoon on Thursday, go to a Home Depot appearance, do a signing, then fly to the track. You were at the track Friday, Saturday, race on Sunday. Then Sunday we would all get on the team that would go to the test sessions. We would get on the plane, fly to a different track, test Monday and Tuesday, and you got home Tuesday evening. So that gave you Wednesday off at home and the morning of Thursday before you started that cycle again. I mean, that's why you retire at 40, because you're wore out. You've lived
right.
a that schedule your entire existence in the sport, and carbon monoxide filters weren't as good then. I mean, drivers, they got used up back in that day. So yeah, it's not hard to understand why guys started retiring a little bit earlier back then, but it's
You could say the
yeah,
outlaw schedule was rougher, but I mean,
I think it's rougher still,
yeah,
but you're still not in a car for 3.5 hours on Sunday.
that's true. The
You know,
endurance
there,
side.
go to Darlington on Labor Day
Hmm.
and run 500 miles at Darlington with it hotter than balls. I mean, I remember we'd pour water down our suits from the pit stop. Like we had our drink bottle, and they'd hand you a water bottle too. You'd kind of carry that out on the track during the caution, and you had to be real careful how much water you put in the top of your suit, because if it ran all the way down to your butt, we were all in aluminum seats
Boiling,
then.
yeah.
We didn't have carbon fiber seats that were insulated and this and that. You had aluminum seats, and if you got too much water down there, it burnt you, literally cooked you.
Mm.
So, I mean, you think about how rough it was back then and how much harder the races were then than what they are now. I mean, now you got cool shirts and this and that, and they get out of the car and their hair's not even wet. So it's like, it's a way different era right now.